This is the Body Wise Podcast. Thank you for joining Laura and Cristina for another intimate exploration of collective wisdom.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Body Wise Podcast. My name is Cristina Curp. I am the co-host of this podcast with my sister, Laura Mar. I'm really excited to talk today about something that we touched upon on our first episode, but haven't really talked about it since, and that is community. It is integral to the human experience. We are pack people, tribal people. We're not meant to be alone. And community now more than ever, I think, is something that a lot of us are craving due to the current circumstances and a lot of the isolation that has happened that we're experiencing because of that. So a lot of people are seeking online communities to fill in that, to fill that void, to find that gap, to have social experiences. And as someone who has built an online community over the last few years, I wanted to talk about it. Let's get into how to build an online community, the different types of online communities, and also how the online world has shifted and has changed. And I think now going into, it's an election year, there's a lot of divisiveness going on. It can seem like the online space is, what's a good word? Volatile. Seems volatile in a lot of ways. So how do we trust? Where do we go when we're seeking community, when we can't really go anywhere, like physically, and online space can seem scary? So let's start with kind of like the old school, how things used to be, the good old days of the internet. Way back when there was MySpace. I don't know if anyone remembers. What was his name? Tom from MySpace. And that was kind of the first glimpse that people had of like sharing their personality online, and kind of being able to say, look, the world, this is who I am, and people could come and post pictures and comments and stuff. And then Facebook came on with like the college crowd, and then it kind of took over to everybody. And then there's Instagram, which is very like image based, and then now there's like there's like Snapchat and TikTok and things that I'm too old for and I don't really know about. I dabbled, but I was like, nah. But I really want to focus on not so much the modality, but how we interact online. So creating an online community usually starts with being relatable to somebody. Everyone is different, but if you show up as yourself and you have your story to tell and you put it out there for people, there's going to be people who relate with what you're saying, with what you've been through. In my case, a lot of it was food-based, certain dietary restrictions, when learning to heal my body, as well as just providing something of value to people, which was recipes. Free recipes. And I did that for many, many years. I still do to a capacity. But little by little, what you realize, even when you start something like a food blog, is that when you're sharing yourself online, people are really seeking that connection. They want to, oh my gosh, me too. Or, oh, I really relate to that. Or that speaks to me. Or I've been through that. We're seeking those experiences. We want to know we're not alone. And so when you can be vulnerable and, not just share the highlight reel. And I think that's really when the magic happens, because so much of what we see online is based on, it's curated, picture perfect. I mean, even people who aren't, influencers still tend to share, kids' birthday parties, vacation photos. No one's sharing like the kitchen filthy after dinner and the kids fighting in the living room, And so when we break up that kind of ongoing feed of, pretty pictures with something that it's usually scary to share. Every time I've like had like knots in my throat and stomach and like sweaty before pressing post has been when it's been the most impactful stuff. And usually it comes to sharing, when I talked publicly for the first time about my autoimmune skin condition, which was embarrassing and something that I hid for 20 years. When I talked about struggles with, body image issues and, being overweight most of my life and, working in the wellness space when you don't look like a wellness typical person, and things like that. Like those that were the messages that resonate with people, the hardships, yes, food as medicine works, but gosh, it's not always easy, That's when someone's like, yeah, thanks for saying that. It's not easy for me either. So if you're someone that's looking to build an online community, just remember, yes, consistency is important, posting regularly. Yes, having a slightly curated in terms of, it's nice when things look pretty. It's nice when there's a theme to things, but make sure it's above all else, that it's real, that it's raw, that it's you. And every day you're not going to share this like super intimate thing, anecdote, because that can be exhausting. It is emotionally exhausting. But, you have a craft, whether you're a designer or a writer, a photographer or an activist or a chef, and, a teacher, a DIYer, a homeschooler, and you're putting that out into the universe. Yes, you're going to do your craft and you're going to, share your skills, and you're going to usually, we tend to get into the role of like a teacher teaching when you do what I do. And that works. And it's a lot of what you do is teaching, but sometimes you also just have to share, vent, speak your mind, kind of journal with your readers, your audience. And that's, I think, when the real connection happens, because I've learned that people don't really buy your products, they buy you. And so you want to make sure that you're showing up authentically and with integrity. And so I did grow my community mostly on social media, Instagram being one of my largest platforms. And then I have my website, which, that's really where people just go for recipes and my articles, and my Facebook, which is pretty, there's a lot of engagement there, although it's a fraction of the size of my Instagram. And then I have a few Facebook groups, and I have this podcast, which is amazing. And, speaking of podcast listeners, yes, you listening right now, pretty please remember to leave a review when you're done listening to the episode. It's really how we get feedback and get to communicate with y'all. Also, when you comment on my social media, but the reviews mean a lot. And so that's where you can, whether you pick your platform, do you want to share pictures? Do you want to share stories? Do you want to share videos? And, it can be a little scary sometimes thinking of the logistics, because all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm a chef. I'm not a videographer or a photographer, but don't let that get in the way of putting yourself out there. I know over the course of the last 6 years, my mediums have changed. Some things have gotten an upgrade. Other things are still just as rudimentary as they were on day one, like my videos. I've always kind of just winged it when it comes to that. But let's talk more about, boundaries and interacting when it comes to a community. Because you're like, okay, so you're online, you're sharing, you're vulnerable. Then what? Well, when you're online and you're sharing free content for the most part, it can be a little difficult in terms of boundaries with people, because there's always going to be an ask. I need, that's a great recipe, but I wish it was made this way. Oh, this is information, but I wish it had this. Could you do a video on this subject? There's always like, yes, you're creating this stuff for free, but people aren't going to just be like, this is awesome, thank you. They're going to be like, this is great, but I also want this, and this, or this. And it's totally cool to fulfill those needs and help people. But you also have to understand that you can't just pander to like people's needs constantly, because it can be very draining, and then you get into the situation where you're really burnt out. And so when it comes to community, it's really important to curate a community that respects you, and they're not just here for the free stuff, that there are also people who will support you. And when you put out a product, that they will buy it, or that they'll use your affiliate links, or that they'll, you know, if you start a coaching program, they'll sign up, or they'll buy the meal plans, because you do have to make a living. I mean, most of us who do this have to pay the bills. I wish I was a millionaire, but most of us are not. So it's important to, I remember when I first heard the term, someone was like, you have to train, I guess is the word, or get your audience used to supporting you monetarily, even from the beginning, because that means that they're finding value in what you're doing. And there is this notion of like, oh, but is it sketchy, or I felt icky about it. And I realized that was my own roadblocks. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that, like not valuing what they do, or having a hard time like feeling like putting money in the mix taints it somehow. But, you know, that's not true. And it's interesting, because when I graduated from the nutritional therapy program and I started working as a nutritional therapist, and even working with Dr. Campbell in her functional medicine clinic, and I was like, whoa, like I would have never charged this much when I was on my own. However, what you see is that when people pay, and there's like studies that support this, like it's like psychology, it's science. When people invest in something, when they pay for something, they're going to use it. They are going to value it more. So let's say like a health coaching program, right? If you only charge, you know, $20 for a session, that person's going to pay you the $20, you know, take an hour of your time, which is not enough money for that. And all the information you gave them, and probably the research you did beforehand, and the resources you did them afterwards. And then they're probably not going to do anything with it. There's going to be a very low retention rate with clients at that low price, because they're not going to stick to the diet. They're going to fall off. They're not going to listen to your instructions. When someone pays $200 for a consult, they're going to do what they're told. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just spent $200. I'm going to do what this person said. And I struggle with that, because when I was doing coaching, I was not charging that at all, because I wanted it to be very accessible, because I do have an issue with accessibility in the wellness industry, right? And I 100% know that most people can't afford $200 out of pocket for a consult. However, I even saw that, with my clients early on, there was like a handful that did amazing. And of course, like worked with them 3 months and it was like ride or die. But there was several who just kind of like disappeared on me. Like they paid me. After a few sessions, they kind of just like fell off. And I was like, I was worried about them. I was like, are you okay? But I realized that if I had probably charged them a little more and it was more of an investment on their part, they might have stuck through the program more. And again, maybe what's a lot for one person isn't for another, and that might have had to do with it. But it's interesting, because that happens again and again and again, and we see it with online businesses. If you're not valuing yourself and what you're giving your community, they're not going to value it either. And, confidence is at the center of being a leader of a community. And let me tell you, I struggle with the word imposter syndrome and confidence sometimes, especially when I, started shifting more from cooking and into nutrition. But at the end of the day, remember that they want you, not your product. Like, yes, people love my recipes, and that's how people kind of like come in, but it's like they come for the food and they stay for me. And it's so weird for me to even say that out loud, and maybe even recording this is like cathartic, because I grapple with that a lot. I thought I would be able to build this blog and I would make all this money from my ads and I could just give away free recipes forever. But that's not the case. Income just didn't come like that easily. And so I've had to really kind of hustle for years, like always doing different things to put together sufficient income for this, like, 80-hour work weeks I'm driving with over here. And I think that when I see new people starting, they're like, what did you do? I'm like, don't do what I did. It was a mess. But at the end of the day, it comes with integrity, honesty, transparency. But the missing piece is that confidence in yourself that what you're creating, what was the missing piece for me, that it is worth something. So you don't necessarily have to charge up front, but if you do a program, price it adequately. If you want to do a membership site, do it that way. I just, after 6 years in business, launched a membership site like last week, because I realized that I wanted a business model that had like higher retention rate and where I could nurture a small group of people versus always having that expectation to grow, right? So when you see people with these big Instagram accounts, like I reached 100,000 like earlier this year, late last year, and things are different now. So even though it's like it was kind of stagnant, it took forever to get there. It was like really weird. But I remember like thinking, wow, this huge milestone. I hit 100,000. Like now it's going to be like next level. And I didn't feel that way at all. I actually felt like there was less quality of interaction, of engagement with my community. I missed my community. I had more followers, but I felt lonelier. I felt like I was just kind of like talking at the internet, not really engaging with anybody. And it hit me that when I was at 25,000 before the algorithms, those were people who knew me. Like they were my ride or dies. Like my first book, they all showed up for my book, my book tour. It was like a family. And as my platform grew and people started seeing my stuff less and less because of algorithms and social media control, I lost that sense of family online. And I actually preferred it when I had less followers. And so fast forward to this year and, 2020 and all the things that have ensued, and speaking to social justice topics and just more about life in general and not just wanting to stick to food, and getting a lot of backlash and then losing a ton of followers. And actually I was almost relieved. I'm like, good riddance. Like, so quality over quantity. Quality over quantity. People think that they need a huge platform to have a successful online community, and you don't. You don't. And I think maybe because I had I learned all of this as I went along, I thought that the growth was really important, and I focused a lot on growth, where I think a model where you can nurture your existing community versus always seeking to find more is more sustainable and more rewarding. So, a lot of people, that's why they do coaching groups or they do membership sites. And really they just use their social media to share some stuff and do a little bit of marketing. But the magic happens off social media. It happens in membership sites, in closed Facebook groups, in newsletters. And that's really where that nurturing happens, where your people are getting exclusive content. You can get very personal. You can get to know these people one-on-one. And that's my advice for people wanting to start a community now. Like, well, how do I start? I feel like it's impossible to grow social media right now. Like, you don't need to. I know so many people who are way more successful than I am, and they have like a third of my following. Like, Instagram followers doesn't pay the bills or translate into success. It's just how many people are following you on a platform. Some people do really well with that and get a lot of like sponsorships and stuff like that. But again, that's just another type of business model that I find it harder and harder to do, because even people who do operate with that business model are constantly in the hustle, and it's the fear of like, if engagement goes down, do their rates go down, or will they lose their sponsorships? And it's exhausting. No one's just like chilling, it's a constant struggle. So going back to creating an online community, you want to start with having a clear message, making sure you're sharing yourself authentically, having confidence in what you are offering your viewers, your readers, you know, your followers, and knowing that what you're offering is of value. So don't be afraid to monetize in a very clear, upfront way. The blog model got people used to getting free content, which is fine, but again, it doesn't work for everybody. So you have a lot of people, then they do tons of affiliate links, multi-level marketing companies, you know, they're pushing meal plans or promotions, and that's fine. But unfortunately, everyone gets shamed. It's like, oh, this is like a commercial. I don't want to, your newsletter always is just about selling stuff. I'm going to unfollow. Or I'm so tired of watching your videos. They're always a product plug. Well, if you're watching a free video, you're getting a free newsletter. That's why, you know, it takes time to create that content. With a membership site or a private closed coaching community or something like that, you can just say, hey, I'm not going to sell you anything once you're in here, but this is the fee to get in, and this is what you get. So it's very like transparent, because people don't realize, it's like, you know, for most people who consume content online, they might not be paying up front for that content, but they'll eventually spend the money somehow, you know, to support that influencer, which is fine. People should support content creators for what they bring to the table, especially when it's very informational. So the education piece, what is it that you are teaching? What is that message? What is it that you want your takeaway to be? And you always have to think about that. Like, what's the end game for your community? Why are they going to join your community? And that can be hard to answer because we're very multifaceted. Like for me, I would think, oh, I want people to heal. I want people to put their autoimmune disease in remission and live pain-free. That's what I want. But a part of me is also like, I just want people to love food and love to cook again. And so, but I can do both. And, you know, that's why I started my cooking club, because I realized that the love of food and cooking will get people to healing and feeling better. So instead of just focusing on this more complicated end result, which could vary so much for people, I could focus on the education piece being more about cooking. But again, cooking videos are a lot of work. And I was like, I can't just do those for free online. So I started a cooking club, and I'm super excited. We're in the first week, we have 17 members. And it's been really great. So I've been putting all this exclusive content in the Casa Cooking Club Patreon, and I'll be doing my first live cooking class very soon. So I'm excited to shift into this business model and talking about it on my social media where people get the free content. It's been interesting seeing like some people feel awkward about it or weird about it. Other people are really excited about it. Other people were just kind of confused as to why. And someone actually commented on one of my Instagrams, like, you should do a podcast talking about like community and how it's changed. And so, you know, I do want to get into that a little bit. When online community, not only did the algorithms change, but the way people communicate online has changed a lot. There's kind of been a shift where people forget they're talking to people. And it's been interesting because there has been an uptick in nasty comments or emails. There's a lot of cyberbullying that goes on, not just with people like influencers, but people within each other, and the comments sometimes can get, you know, weird. And that puts us, the content creators, as on the defensive, because it hurts. It does. It hurts a lot. It's stressful. I mean, how many times have I called, you know, Kendra, or Kendra's called me, or I've vented to another blogger friend about, you know, having a really rough day, some people saying some stuff, and it can really wear at you for a while. And then you wake up one morning and you're like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to open the messages. I don't want to read the emails. I'm tired. And that's when you have to step back and say, okay, I'm getting burnt out. This isn't working. Because that for me, when I am like kind of just triggered by messages on social media, I know I'm getting burnt out. And so I think that although the expectation is that you go, you're always building, posting, you have to answer every single person, you don't. It's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to go at your own pace. You don't have to post every single day. You can, even when you create a private community, there isn't that pressure. It's actually been proven that less is more. Like 4 or 5 things you're delivering to your community a month tops. You don't want to overburden people. But online, on the free social media stuff, things move so quickly that you feel like you're always repeating yourself, and that you have to say things 100 times, and that you have to post all the time or you become irrelevant. But I really think that's the perception. It's not the reality, because the people who really matter, they're the ones who are going to make sure they see your post, make sure they come find you, follow along. When you fall into that trap of like having to kind of on that hamster wheel, I think you're just pandering to then that growth model, which is like the bigger the platform, the more people that follow me, the more I can, I don't know, like there's like this trickle down effect, right? So if you have this many followers, and then it comes down to like maybe 1% of those people will actually buy something that you're selling or buy your book. I mean, I have 100,000 followers on Instagram. If every single one of those bought my book, I would have been a New York Times bestseller, but they didn't. That's not how it works. And so I've learned that, again, when you can create healthy boundaries with people, where just because you follow me doesn't mean I owe you anything, because you're not paying me. The follow doesn't really do a whole lot. Second, when you can tell people, I don't want to go there, or I don't have to answer that, or, hey, I can help you with that, but it has to be in a client, relationship dynamic. It can't just be like, health coaches fall into this a lot, where they start giving free advice and messages online, and they really shouldn't be doing that. Not just because you're working for free, but also because there's liability issues. So boundaries are really important. I love following Diane Sanfilippo on this topic. Maybe I'll have her on the podcast and interview her about that, because she's just the queen of healthy boundaries, but she says it in a very unapologetic way, which I really admire, because I'm a people pleaser. So sometimes it's hard for me. Like, unless someone pisses me off, then I'm really good with my boundaries. But otherwise, when people are being nice, it's hard for me to say, although you're being nice, this isn't serving me, and I have to put this boundary in place, and I struggle with that. But if you're going to build an online community, you have to put those boundaries in place, because you will get burnt out. Because it's not just the one person with the messages, it's 10 people or 20 people or 30 people or 100 people with the same message, with the same question, or asking every day. There's a lot of asking. It's like for the mothers out there, when all your kids are like asking you, I'm hungry, I want a snack. That's kind of what it's like. So boundaries are really important. And that kind of circles back to the confidence, and circles back to knowing that what you offer is of value, and the people who are there will value it. And quality over quantity, I find to be better, because if you have 100 people who live and die, like, love your content, love your programs, 100 subscribers to your community, or 100 people in your coaching program, or 100 people buying, your stories, or your homeschooling services, or your DIY kits, I don't know, and they're buying it at a really good, fair price, you can make a living off that, versus having 100,000 people, but out of those, 20 are going to like support your business, monetarily. So it's better to nurture those 100 people versus constantly seeking growth. And I remember listening to a training program on that, and it made so much sense. Like, and actually for women, since we're such like inherently nurturers, it really feels more in alignment with, definitely for me, it feels more in alignment to have a small group of people. It doesn't have to be that small. The more the merrier. My cooking club, I feel like I might close it out eventually, but it's one of those things that I feel more comfortable being more vulnerable there, because I won't be like attacked, I guess, which kind of has happened online, which is scary and exhausting when it happens. And also because you're nurturing it, so you can answer the questions. You can ask really good questions that you might get complicated, like other questions too. You can say, what do you need? What do you need? Like, I can customize this for you. Like, what do you need from me? And answer those questions. But because you're doing it to a smaller group, it's not going to be exact. And it's a group that's already invested in you. Not people just, oh, like, free food, I'll take it, you know? So don't get caught up in the numbers, especially online on social media. My best advice is to start with a newsletter. If you have, anything that you're going to put out, if you do a speaking engagement, if you do a workshop, collect emails from people. That way you can get a hold of them. You can tell them when you launch something. And then you can grow something, online. So there's different ways that you can do it. There's really big websites like Mighty Networks and Kandara and Podia. I found those overwhelming. They have like a flat rate. Some of them are really expensive. Some of them are more affordable, but they're very like customizable. And what I was looking for was something more plug and play. So I went with Patreon, which is like kind of like a social media network. That's the way it kind of works, like a blog, and you can do videos and posts and share things. And there's a chat. There's like a private chat, but there's memberships. You buy into a membership, and then there's tiers, and you can customize it. And what I liked about Patreon is that it's free. They just they will take a percentage of your income every month. But I like that it was very plug and play. Like, you don't have to be a designer. You don't have to be which I'm not. I was just able to go in there but I know people who do run their communities off Facebook groups, free private Facebook groups. And there's a lot of people who do it like that. I wanted to do it off of Facebook because I know I had a lot of followers who just don't use Facebook anymore. And again, I'm just like traumatized by Facebook and Instagram essentially like halting my engagement and my traffic and my growth, and not having any control over a business that I grew on a platform that I don't have control over, And in a way, Podia and Patreon, all of those are the same, but because they are paid, they're not free. They don't get anything out of screwing you over. Like Facebook and Instagram don't care screwing me over. I don't pay them, right? Unless I do ads, which I barely do anymore because they're not worth it. But these other platforms, you are paying them. So they want to make sure you stay happy. And that's kind of the same thing that happens with a paid community. Not only are your members invested in you, but you are invested in them. And I find it to be the future of online communities, because unfortunately social media is just, it's also getting so fake. Good Lord. So fake. Everything is like acted out. It's like you literally see people like becoming movie stars because they just act online doing like skits or videos or like these, I don't know. It's so weird to me. And some people are so good at that, and that's fine because they found their niche, their talent. That's not me. But again, it almost all starts sounding the same or looking the same. The pitch, like I can spot a pitch from a mile away and it drives me nuts. And so I just tended to, do things my own way, which might not be the best way. Like I'm not claiming to be a huge expert, but I am someone who did grow an online community. And I really felt that community the most 2 years ago when my first book came out, and I went on book tour, and every stop had like 100 people or 50 people. It was like they were so, and connecting with people in real life. And I think that that's the true testament of an online community. If, God willing, we surpass, the Rona, and we can get back to in real life things, how amazing would it be to have this amazing online community that you can then host in real life workshops or cooking classes, which is what I want to do, and have these people show up and be able to connect with them in real life and have a meal with them or do, a meditation with them. And I really, truly believe that the best online community are the ones that can transcend the digital platform into the real life space and be really nurturing. And for those who are part of communities online, I say what you should want to gain from an online community, because I've been part of several online communities and I've had to leave them. if they weren't serving me. You want to make sure that you're getting something of value. Are you learning something? Is it useful to you? But also that you leave feeling good, that there's something that you're experiencing there which is filling your cup. It shouldn't make you feel bad about yourself. It should make you feel good about yourself. And so, and that you're learning something. So again, value, integrity, transparency, commitment, confidence. Confidence is a big one. Yeah, and communication, and don't get too caught up in the deliverables. There's so many ways to connect with people. And nowadays with technology, I mean, you can just record on your phone, on your computer. You don't need a lot. And you can make content that you can share with people. I really wish, my dream is to take my business in brick and mortar one of these days, sooner than later, because I do believe that while online communities allows us to connect with people, maybe if, for those who live in like small towns or places that are like really out in the middle of nowhere, and they might not have anyone that they can relate to in their town, that no one else is gluten free, or no one else has autoimmune disease, or no one else, just has anything in common with them. And I get it. I've been there. I mean, moving on with the military, that's definitely happened to me. And I've leaned on my online communities. But eventually, we do need to have that in-person connection. And I think that we have to remember that being empathetic and being cordial and like manners and like full sentences are important. The way we communicate online will eventually reflect how we communicate in real life. And you see this shift where the way people talk to each other online is kind of like spilling out into real life. So I think we should always communicate in like the way that like say what we mean to say, and don't say anything online that you wouldn't say to someone to their face, as a rule of thumb. But yeah, when you feel better after spending time with someone, like that friend that you had that really good coffee date with, and you just leave feeling like, all like, yeah, that's good. I feel good. That's what I want to create with my online community. That's what I think everyone wants to create. That's the magic right there. So anyways, I hope this podcast was useful to you. Speaking of useful things, about online communities, and if you were hesitant to create one or to join one, I hope this explains some things to you. If you were curious about my online community, you can check it out in the show notes, or just look up on Patreon, Mi Casa Cooking Club, which literally means my house cooking club, because it's from my house to yours. And we'll be doing the first live stream cooking class at the end of September. The 2020 is the first one. And the basis of the community is live stream cooking classes. So I'm promising one a month, because again, boundaries, it's what I know I can deliver. As life settles down, I will probably do more than one a month, but I wanted to like under promise, over deliver. And there's different tiers. So there's, for the highest tier of like executive chef, I offer nutrition courses on there as well, which come either in videos or in a PDF format, exclusive recipes. And there's kitchen hours where I'm available to live chat, like via DM or chat room, for those who need to like talk about anything with me. I'm around, in real time. So yeah, it's exciting having that, again, a small group to nurture, versus navigating, social media that just feels like the Wild West these days and can be, there's no control. Like I have no way to reach people if the algorithm doesn't show my work to them. So gotta, I'm not gonna abandon social media, but I'll be putting my efforts where there's a return, both not just financially, but emotionally, really. And I hope to take it on the road and do it in person, which was my plan. After the Made Homemade Simple book tour, I was going to do a cooking tour to the same cities where someone would host me in their home. But then, 2020 had other plans, as we know. But that is the future of Mi Casa Cooking Club. We are online, we are live, we will be doing them in person eventually. And I'm very excited for that. So if you guys have any questions about, online communities and starting them, if you want it or joining them, you can always send me an email, Cristina, Cristina, at thecastawaykitchen.com, and let me know what your questions are. If you have a million questions about starting your own business, I'll answer as best of my ability, but those are very time-consuming conversations that you probably need to pay a consultant for, but I will help you as much as I can, because I do love the freedom that working online a lot gives you. And as a military spouse and a mother, I think that, those who want to work from home or start their own business can, there's enough there's enough space at the table for everybody. So don't let the fear of it's already been done or it's saturated stop you, because people will never stop starting blogs, starting podcasts, writing cookbooks, writing music. I mean, think about what if Beyonce was like, nah, it's been done. Come on, So anyway, I hope this was useful, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I hope you have a community that you can lean on during these hard times, and people that you can talk to and are there for you, because we all need somebody. And so whether it's through a screen or over the phone or in real life, go tell someone you love them today. Bye.